And to further dissect the numbers, joining us on the broadcast this minute is Arsen Ostrovsky, Middle East expert and foreign policy analyst, joining us from Tel Aviv. Also joining us is our West Asia Bureau Chief, Daniel Pagani, from Jerusalem. Coming to you first, Daniel, you've been speaking to voters over the last few hours. Give us a sense of what things are looking like on the ground.
Well, according to all the people I have been speaking with, they really very much hope that whatever the outcome, there will be a government. All the people I have spoken with do not want to get out and vote for a third time. Yesterday, when I was on the street of Tel Aviv, many were undecided. They didn't even know if they were going to vote. Fortunately, they decided to do so, as we have seen the turnout was slightly higher than the April 2018 elections. But what they want right now is a stable government in place. They know that Israel faces many challenges. There are security threats, important security threats coming from the north, from Hezbollah, from the Gaza Strip, and from the Iranian actions all across the Middle East. Also, there is the deal of the century, which is supposed to be out in the coming days or maybe weeks. Therefore, there is the necessity of a stable government, and this is what majorly I've heard talking around the cafes and with the people here in Jerusalem.
Right, Arsen, many are saying that these figures that we're looking like at this point come along expected lines. There are no surprises here.
Correct. I mean, look, first of all, I should say that, you know, it's terrific for there to be such great interest in India about what is happening with these elections. So that's, first of all, I think that's a really wonderful thing. But correct, I don't think there are any major surprises, and essentially we're back to square one where we began. You know, in Hebrew, there's a word balagan, which means mess or chaos, and I think that doesn't begin to describe the situation which Israel finds itself in today. You know, the country is gridlocked, it's paralyzed without a proper functioning government. And we have a situation at the moment, as you alluded to in your introduction, where the right bloc is on about 55 seats and the left bloc, which is on ahead by maybe one or so at the moment, on 56. The path to government for Benny Gantz is far more difficult because he would need to rely on the joint Arab list, and it will be far more difficult for them to be included in any kind of coalition with Avigdor Lieberman and all the other parties that he would need to put together. But on the other hand, Netanyahu, who wants his traditional right-wing religious government, but it would be very difficult to have that also with Lieberman, who has really sort of essentially this election reaffirmed, you know, he's been one of the biggest winners. He's doubled his seat count, and he will be either king maker or king slayer. He will have the final say in terms of how the coalition will shape, whether it will be a broad national unity government with Likud, with blue and white as he is wanting, or alternate options. At the moment, there are a lot of different variations, different options, possibly someone other than Netanyahu might lead. At the end of the day, whatever the options are, as Daniel has also noted in his introduction, the last thing people want here is another election.
Absolutely. So chaos and uncertainty, unfortunately, once again coming the way of Israelis. Daniele, you were there the last election as well, and what remains constant is the way the Israeli Arabs have been regarded as a section that could turn the electoral tide. Give us, tell us a little bit more about what you have been gathering while speaking to them over the last few days.
Well, there is a sharp difference between the two elections, despite many of the topics have been absolutely the same. The security threat, for instance, are the same. They have just grown way bigger now. There was no incident with Hezbollah the last time that Israeli voted. What I have gathered as of now is that certainly security is very much in mind, but not only that, also the economic part is a problem for the voters here in Israel. The Israeli economy in the last 6 months have not been doing very well. There is a problem with budgeting the economy, and clearly a stalemate wouldn't definitely favor that. There was an atmosphere of voter fatigue in the early hours of the morning yesterday that definitely did not turn out to be a reality. Fortunately, everyone here is ready and expect the government to fulfill the vote, because at the end of the day we are seeing that the Israeli population gave the same, more or less the same amount of votes to the two different political coalitions that could be formed. So this is a clear message to them. responsibility and to act responsibly to give the country stability. The minimum they can do is to find a way out, because really not having a government in place is not an option. Not for the leaders who are risking very much, all of them, their political careers. First of all, Benjamin Netanyahu, and he might need to step aside if he wants if he wants to see the formation of a larger coalition, and he will have to consider that possibility, despite not being absolutely within his very own ideas. But anyway, as I say, the mood on the ground is that there is the need of a responsible action to form a coalition, to find a way out. And also, those voters who gave their trust to Lieberman expect him not to be the kingslayer, as Arsen said, but to be the kingmaker, and the right kingmaker.
And the right kingmaker is what the Israelis want at this point, the second election in 6 months. Arsen, I have to also ask you, help our viewers understand why Israel is throwing up such an interesting and yet divided result for the second time round.
Look, we have a country that's in many ways very divisive, very polarized. This election was, I think, in many ways a referendum on Prime Minister Netanyahu. It wasn't left versus right. I don't think it was religious or secular, for that matter. I think there were two blocks. There was a pro-Netanyahu right-wing bloc, and there was an anti-Netanyahu bloc, which included everyone from Blue and White Benny Gantz, which included the left-wing parties, which included the Join Arab List. So there are, I think there are sharp differences in character between the major parties. I don't think there's a lot of differences in terms of policy, certainly not in terms of security, not in terms of foreign relations, where Netanyahu is very difficult to beat. I think it's very difficult to fight him on those grounds. But it is, or was very much, a referendum on his leadership. Part of the country very much appreciates and respects his relative that he has brought, the economic stability. They see him meeting, world leaders like Putin, like Modi, of course, and like President Trump, and his actions on Iran, on Jerusalem, on the Golan Heights. They see his enigma, his charisma. Those things, are a lot of value to his supporters. On the other hand, there are a lot of people who also say that he has been an incredibly divisive leader, that he has ramped up, inappropriate language towards various minority groups. They are saying that, look, you know what, you've been in power long enough. He's been the longest, and enough is enough. But, he's been in power for a long time for a reason. He is, at the end of the day, love him or loathe him, he is a master politician, and he knows how to survive and to fight for every last vote, right, which he's doing now.
And the last thing, as you just said, is that Israelis do not want another election. So we're hoping that some clarity will be on the horizon over the next few hours. We're going to leave it there for the moment. Arsen and Daniele, appreciate very much you're joining us on the broadcast with those perspectives.